She walked through the grand marble doors of the courthouse, poised, dignified, dressed in a sleek navy blue suit. But before she could step fully inside, two uniformed guards blocked her path. "Courtroom access is restricted, ma'am," one barked. She calmly pulled out her ID. Their faces dropped. That, ma'am, was Chief Justice Eleanor Sharp, the highest-ranking judicial official in the entire state. What happened next would unravel a tangled web of bias, power, and public reckoning. This is a story about more than mistaken identity. It's about how racism hides in the cracks of the very systems meant to deliver justice, and how one woman's quiet strength forced an entire courthouse and a state to confront its shameful truth. Justice Eleanor Sharp didn't rise to the top overnight. Born in Jackson, Mississippi, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table, Eleanor knew early on that her road would be longer and harder than most. She graduated at the top of her class from Howard Law, clerked under a federal judge, and argued 12 civil rights cases before becoming the youngest black woman ever appointed to the state Supreme Court. Now 48, she was revered across legal circles, but apparently not recognized by her own security team. She arrived at the Southside Municipal Courthouse for a surprise audit, an effort to assess how marginalized individuals were treated during arraignments and bail hearings. She told no one she was coming. What she didn't expect was to be treated like a suspect in her own house. The guards didn't just stop her. They surrounded her. "Step back," one ordered. "This entrance is for court personnel only." "I am court personnel," she responded, unfazed. But that wasn't enough. One of the guards placed his hand on his weapon. A clerk named Thomas, watching from inside, rushed out. His eyes widened in horror. "Wait, do you even know who that is?" The guards didn't. Not until she reached into her handbag, pulled out her judicial ID, and held it high. "Chief Justice Eleanor Sharp. I believe I'm more than qualified to enter." Silence. Then panic. The 2 guards quickly apologized. Too quickly. But the damage was done. Eleanor didn't make a scene. She didn't raise her voice. But the next day, she filed a formal complaint with the Judicial Ethics Board. What started as a misunderstanding turned into something much bigger. Security footage revealed the guards had stopped 4 other black individuals that morning, 2 of whom had court summons. Even more disturbing, Eleanor learned that a black public defender was routinely searched while his white counterparts walked in unbothered. It was no longer about her. It was about a pattern. A pattern that had gone unnoticed or ignored for years. The story leaked. Local media picked it up. The footage of the Chief Justice being blocked at the door aired on the evening news. Commentators debated. Was it just a mistake? But the black community didn't need convincing. They'd felt it. Black mothers called into radio shows sharing how their sons were treated like threats just walking into the same building. One retired judge admitted anonymously that she had faced similar, mistaken identity moments multiple times in her early career. This was no accident. This was the system working exactly how it was built. Just when the fire seemed to reach its peak, a whistleblower from within the courthouse came forward. A young paralegal named Amanda leaked an internal memo, one that had been sent months prior to the security team. It warned about non-staff individuals entering through the East Wing, and listed vague identifiers for potential security threats. Among them, unfamiliar attire, lack of proper ID visible, and chillingly, suspicious behavior often observed in unaccompanied persons of color. The document was real, dated, signed, authorized. Suddenly, the guards' actions weren't just the result of personal bias. They were following policy. The governor demanded answers. The chief of court security was fired. The memo author? Placed on indefinite leave. But Justice Sharp remained quiet. Until she wasn't. At a press conference, flanked by civil rights leaders and legal scholars, she spoke. Justice doesn't begin when the gavel drops. It begins at the door. And if that door is locked for some, then we are failing. Her words echoed far beyond state lines. Federal investigations were launched. Other states began re-evaluating courthouse security procedures. Change was happening. But even as the building began to reckon with its failures, something still didn't sit right with Justice Sharp. Weeks later, a sealed envelope arrived at her office. No return address. No name. Inside, a photo. It was her, standing outside the courthouse on the day of the incident. But the photo was taken from inside the security booth. A sticky note attached read, "You were never supposed to find out." Suddenly, this wasn't just about systemic bias. This was a cover-up. Chief Justice Sharp stared at the photograph, her pulse quickening. This wasn't just about racial profiling. This was a targeted act. She called Amanda, the paralegal who leaked the internal memo. Amanda answered, whispering, "I think they know it was me," she said. "Someone's been following me home." Eleanor's jaw clenched. "Get to my office. Now." Minutes later, Amanda burst in, breathless, holding a flash drive. "There's more," she whispered. "It's not just about security memos. There's an entire system of digital tags used to flag court visitors. Base, income level, criminal background, even political affiliation." Eleanor's eyes widened. "They're profiling everyone." "Yes," Amanda replied. "And guess who signed off on it?" Amanda pulled up a database, a program titled Order Scan. Each person who entered the courthouse was logged, flagged using facial recognition linked to third-party data brokers. At the top of the approval chain, Judge Harold Whitmore, Eleanor's longtime colleague and former mentor. "No, that can't be right," Eleanor muttered. "Harold fought beside me for equal access. He's one of the good ones." But then she saw the meeting logs, confidential emails. He'd attended private security summits with corporate surveillance consultants, meetings held in undisclosed locations. Amanda leaned in. "They're selling access to our courts." "What do you mean?" "I mean wealthy firms, white-collar defense attorneys, even developers. They're given data. Before a person even steps into court, they know if they're vulnerable." "Vulnerable how?" "Single parent, low credit, no legal rep. It's how they manipulate plea deals and settlement negotiations." Eleanor sat back, stunned. Her courthouse had become a marketplace. Amanda had one more card to play. She knew where the next secret meeting would be, a private club on the city's west side. Disguised and with hidden microphones, Eleanor and Amanda went in. They were surrounded by judges, defense attorneys, and court clerks. And at the center, Judge Whitmore, laughing. "And if anyone asks, it's about efficiency. That's the beauty of it." Amanda's hands trembled. Eleanor whispered, "We need to leave. Now." They slipped out, but someone noticed. A man at the bar, tall, shaved head, watching. As Eleanor opened her car door, she found a white envelope tucked into the windshield. Inside, a court security badge, number 1129. She checked the database that night. Badge 1129 had been deactivated 4 years ago. The guard was reported missing, presumed dead. So who was wearing it now? Determined to expose everything, Eleanor returned to the courthouse at midnight. Amanda had discovered blueprints. There was a floor that didn't appear on public records. Between the second and third, an access door, locked electronically. Using the deactivated badge, they entered. What they found shocked them. A control room, walls lined with monitors, live feeds from every courtroom, hallway, holding cell, even judge chambers. Amanda whispered, "They've been watching everyone. 4 years." Then a monitor blinked. A live feed. It was Eleanor's office, and inside it was Judge Whitmore, going through her files. He looked straight into the camera and smiled. They thought the biggest betrayal was racial profiling. But as the mask lifts, Eleanor learns the real corruption hides behind the familiar. And now, the game has turned deadly. Will she risk everything to bring it all down? Eleanor barely slept that night. She paced her study, thoughts spiraling. Whitmore had once mentored her, championed justice, and fought racial inequality. But now, he was orchestrating a system that preyed on the vulnerable. Why? She flipped through old case files. One by one, a pattern emerged. Every case Whitmore oversaw in the past 3 years had a common thread. Those with the odds stacked against them had been steered, pressured, or manipulated. And many of those cases had quietly benefited a group known as Equity Group Holdings, a private investment firm with ties to property development, private prisons, and, Eleanor's stomach turned, surveillance tech contractors. Amanda walked in, pale-faced. "They've just reassigned all your staff," she said. "Your calendar's been scrubbed. Your driver, gone." "They're isolating me." Amanda nodded. "And that's not all. I traced the equity group. And guess who chairs it?" Eleanor blinked. "No. Yes. Judge Harold Whitmore." By morning, Eleanor knew what she had to do. She called an emergency judicial oversight hearing. No aides. No press. Just the old legal warriors she could still trust, retired judges, civil rights advocates, and federal observers. They met in an old library chamber. Eleanor presented evidence. The database, the floor plan, the footage, the badge, even the whistleblower testimony. The room fell silent. One elder judge whispered, "If this is true, it changes everything." But then came a knock. A bailiff entered. "There's a problem. Your evidence. It's missing." "What do you mean, missing?" Eleanor shot up. "Everything you logged with the clerk's office is gone. Hard drives, files, even the recording of your own surveillance footage." Amanda gasped. "We backed it up, right?" "Yes. But that's what worries me." Eleanor's voice dropped. "It means they know exactly where we are." The next day, Eleanor arrived at the courthouse early. Judge Whitmore was already there. He stood at the base of the marble steps, waiting. "Eleanor," he said calmly, "let's not do this. The system isn't broken. It's efficient, precise. Targeting poor people, minorities, single mothers. Is that what you call efficiency?" Whitmore sighed. "You're emotional. This isn't about race. It's about order." Eleanor stepped forward. "You're exploiting justice for profit." "And yet," he smiled, "no one else sees it that way. I'll make them see." He leaned in. "If you push this, people will get hurt. Amanda, your clerks, even your reputation." That night, Amanda's apartment was broken into. Everything was taken. Her cat poisoned. A note left, "This is your only warning." With no official channels left, Eleanor turned to the court of public opinion. Amanda uploaded encrypted backups to a journalist they trusted, Naomi Castillo, a fierce reporter from the Independent Sentinel. Within hours, a feature went live. Inside the courthouse of control, the secret surveillance state you never voted for. It exploded. Hashtags trended. Protesters gathered. The governor called an emergency session. The Department of Justice launched an investigation. But with the heat came more danger. Amanda disappeared, gone without a trace. The next morning, Eleanor received a package with no return address. Inside, Amanda's ID badge, burned around the edges, and a note written in red ink. "You were warned. Now you'll be judged." Shaken but determined, Eleanor returned to her office. But this time, the door was already open, and someone was waiting inside. As Eleanor steps into her office, the door closes behind her. In the shadows waits the person who's been pulling strings all along, and the truth she's about to learn could shatter her world forever. Will she survive long enough to bring them down? Eleanor froze. The office was dark, blinds drawn, the air still and heavy. A silhouette sat in her chair, legs crossed, fingers steepled. "Eleanor," said the voice, "you've made quite the mess." As the figure leaned forward, the light revealed a shock of white hair and piercing blue eyes. It wasn't Whitmore. It was Chief of Security Raymond Griggs. "You," Eleanor whispered. "I've been protecting this institution for 30 years. You think you're the first judge with a conscience?" He sneered. "I'm not afraid of you. You should be. Amanda's just the beginning." He stood and dropped a manila envelope on the desk. "Open it." Inside were photos of Eleanor, Amanda, even her son Malik. Images taken from across months, maybe years. Some inside her own home. Her blood ran cold. "We've been watching since you got the robe." After Griggs left, Eleanor knew she had to act fast. She made a burner call to Naomi, the journalist. "Griggs is involved. This goes all the way to state intelligence. I need protection for Malik. And I need access to every Judge Griggs and Whitmore appointed." "Already on it," Naomi said. "And you're not gonna believe what we just found." A leaked memo from Equity Group, lists of judges, prosecutors, and even police chiefs, all on their payroll. Eleanor leaned against the window. "This isn't corruption," she said. "It's a cartel in black robes." The leak triggered outrage. Courtrooms were stormed by protesters. A viral video of a mother whose son was sentenced by a bribed judge went national. Law students, public defenders, and even a few brave judges began speaking out. Still, Amanda was missing, until a coded message was uploaded to Eleanor's private server, a recording of Amanda whispering coordinates. She was alive. Naomi and Eleanor followed the coordinates to an abandoned juvenile detention center outside the city. Inside, it was a fortress of silence. No guards, no lights, just shadows. But they found Amanda, chained in a solitary room, bruised but conscious. "You came," she whispered. "We're getting out of here." As they made their way out, Naomi paused. "Wait, are those server racks?" In a hidden room were hundreds of hard drives. Eleanor gasped. "It's their archive. The surveillance files. All of it." They had just stumbled onto the motherlode. Eleanor returned to court with Amanda, carrying boxes of evidence. She stormed into a judicial review panel. "This court has been hijacked by corruption, but today we return it to the people." They connected the servers live to a federal inquiry. Case after case was laid bare. Bribes, manipulations, sentences for sale. Whitmore was arrested that evening, but Griggs was nowhere to be found. Eleanor stood on the courthouse steps, addressing the press. "Justice isn't the robe you wear, it's the courage to stand when silence is easier. If the system forgets its people, then the people must remind it who it serves." She turned to Amanda. "We're not done yet." A car screeched to a halt nearby. A masked man stepped out, aiming a device at Eleanor. Her bodyguards lunged. The screen fades to black. The flash came first, bright, silent, blinding. Then came the pop, a small, controlled blast. Eleanor's bodyguards tackled her to the ground as the device clattered to the pavement. Gas hissed from its vents. "EMP!" someone screamed. "It's not a bomb, it's a disruptor." All nearby electronics went dead. Cameras, phones, comms. Total blackout. In the chaos, the masked man vanished into the alley. Eleanor staggered to her feet, clutching Amanda's arm. "Why are they still coming after us?" Amanda gasped. "Because Whitmore was only the public face," Eleanor said. "The true architect is still hiding." Days later, Eleanor and Naomi gathered in a secure location with cybersecurity expert Marcus Lynn. They powered up the salvaged servers on isolated networks. What they discovered was worse than they imagined. One folder, labeled Ghost OPS, contained surveillance contracts tied to multiple shadow figures in the government, coded only by initials. One stood out, RG. "Raymond Griggs," Naomi whispered. "He's not just security. He's ex-intelligence," Eleanor said. "He was planted here." Then Amanda pointed at a subfolder labeled Succession. Inside was a profile of Eleanor. Notes: vulnerabilities, emotional triggers. Wait, Amanda said. This isn't surveillance. It's targeting, Eleanor said. They were grooming me. To replace Whitmore, Naomi added. Eleanor's knees nearly buckled. She'd been chosen, used. Using the archives, Eleanor began coordinating with federal investigators. Dozens of judges and prosecutors resigned overnight. A class action lawsuit was filed on behalf of hundreds of wrongfully convicted citizens. But something deeper haunted Eleanor. How did I not see it? She asked Amanda one night. You did, Amanda replied. That's why they failed. Just as the case seemed airtight, Naomi brought troubling news. There's a mole in the task force. Evidence was leaking, witnesses backing out, and someone tipped off the press about Eleanor's sealed juvenile record from decades ago, a petty theft case that had been expunged. It hit national headlines. Chief Justice hid criminal past? It was Smear Campaign 101. Eleanor addressed it head-on during a live interview. I made mistakes as a child, but I turned them into a purpose. That past doesn't disqualify me, it prepared me. Still, she knew, whoever was orchestrating this wasn't done. Late one night, Eleanor received a voice message on an encrypted line. She played it. A slow clap echoed, then a voice she hadn't heard in years. Well played, Sharp. But the real trial hasn't begun. Amanda froze. Who? It's him, Eleanor said, eyes narrowing. The man behind Griggs. The true puppet master. I thought he was dead. Apparently not. Who is he? Eleanor stared at the recorder. My father. On the steps of the Supreme Court, Eleanor addressed the growing crowd. We've torn the mask off a system designed to fail the very people it promised to protect. But justice isn't a single verdict. It's vigilance. It's voices raised. It's stories told. She looked to Amanda. They wanted silence. Instead, we gave them truth. Cheers erupted. But as the crowd dispersed, a child handed Eleanor an envelope. Inside, a photo of her childhood home. On the back, "Come alone, or more will disappear." She stared into the distance. It wasn't over. Eleanor followed the GPS coordinates to the city's forgotten quarter, a cluster of condemned buildings and empty lots where streetlights flickered like ghosts. Her car rolled to a stop in front of what used to be a federal courthouse annex, its windows boarded up, its presence erased from modern maps. She stepped out, the wind biting at her skin, and walked to the rusted door. It creaked open before she touched it. Inside, dim emergency lights lit a hallway covered in dust. But the air smelled fresh. Somebody was here. As she made her way deeper into the building, she passed remnants of a time long gone. Overturned chairs, broken file cabinets, yellowed portraits of forgotten judges. But then, a warm coffee cup on a desk, footsteps echoing down the corridor, and a red blinking light from a nearby camera. Eleanor was being watched. Back at Eleanor's office, Amanda and Naomi pored over the surveillance metadata. Amanda's hacker connections had managed to trace the fabric in Eleanor's judicial robe. It was embedded with smart fibers, used in government-grade tracking. Naomi loaded the coordinates. Wait, she frowned. This location doesn't match where Eleanor went. She was given a decoy, Amanda said. They're leading her into a trap. Without waiting, Naomi grabbed her keys. We're going to find her. Now. Eleanor descended a flight of stairs into what looked like an underground courtroom, a strange, uncanny replica of her own. Rows of wooden benches sat eerily empty, shadows dancing on the walls. Then a spotlight clicked on. A masked figure stood at the judge's bench. Chief Justice Eleanor Sharp, the figure boomed. You are charged with betrayal of the order. The voice was modulated, but unmistakably male. It sent chills down her spine. You've infected the court with sentimentality. Justice without power is weakness. A projector on the wall flickered to life, showing manipulated footage of her rulings, twisted to make her appear biased, dangerous, irrational. This is your trial, the masked man said. Defend your truth, or be erased from history. Between interrogations, Eleanor was shown an old video. Her father, presumed dead in prison, speaking in front of a chalkboard filled with justice algorithms and surveillance protocols. He believed in this, Griggs' voice said from behind the mask. He knew the system was unsalvageable. He helped us build something better. Eleanor's hands trembled. Her father, the man who inspired her to pursue justice, had become the architect of the very system she now fought. Was her entire life built on a lie? Amanda and Naomi broke into the city's surveillance control hub using a forged federal warrant. The feeds were encrypted, but Amanda hacked through, sweating as alarms silently blinked. There, she pointed, below the old courthouse. A live feed revealed Eleanor, trapped, being forced to defend her life's work in a twisted trial. She's under the courthouse, Naomi said. It's all been right under our noses. The basement beneath the courthouse was a labyrinth of tunnels and forgotten cells. Amanda and Naomi used thermal imaging to guide their way. Finally, they reached a reinforced door, behind which they heard Eleanor's voice echoing. She's in there, Naomi whispered. Amanda reached for the keypad, her fingers trembling. But just as she was about to input the code, the hallway lights shut off. Total darkness. Then, a voice echoed from an overhead speaker. One wrong step, and none of you leave alive. A scream pierced the silence. From inside the chamber, Eleanor's scream. Inside the chamber, Eleanor was strapped to a symbolic witness chair, more throne than seat, surrounded by hooded figures. The room was arranged like a jury box, yet everyone was masked, identities hidden. Cameras rolled from every angle, beaming the mock trial to unknown receivers. The masked man presiding as judge leaned forward. "You're here because the law became your tool of mercy," he growled. "Justice must be blind and cold." Eleanor met his eyes, or where his eyes should have been. "Justice must be just," she said, voice clear despite the fear. Suddenly, a countdown timer lit up on the wall. 10 minutes, the man said, "to prove yourself, or we rewrite the story of who you were." In the pitch-dark hallway outside, Amanda activated her emergency wrist scanner. It faintly illuminated a junction box on the wall. "We can cut the power grid to force an emergency override," she whispered. Naomi drew a deep breath. "Do it. But I'm going in now." Amanda hesitated. "You'll be on your own." "I've been alone before," Naomi said, pulling out her badge. "But Eleanor never let me stay that way." With a click, the override initiated. Doors slammed open, mechanical locks losing control. Naomi dashed into the chamber as alarms began to wail. Eleanor turned as Naomi burst in, disrupting the trial. The jurors rose like startled phantoms. But instead of attacking, they froze. Naomi held up a federal warrant. "This tribunal is illegal. Step away." The masked judge stood. "You think your badge matters here?" he hissed. "You're too late." He ripped off his mask. Naomi gasped. It was Judge Harold Keyes, the man who had mentored Eleanor early in her career. A man believed dead, after a suspicious courthouse bombing years earlier. "You were my hero," Eleanor whispered. "Why?" "Because the courts abandoned truth long ago," he spat. "But this was your final exam." He gestured to the cameras. "Now the world sees the real Eleanor Sharp." Suddenly, gas canisters hissed into the chamber. Panic erupted. Amanda, still at the grid terminal, saw the warning, "neurotoxin gas detected." She screamed into her radio, "Eleanor, Naomi, get out." Inside, Naomi pulled Eleanor from the chair as masked figures fled. Through the thickening haze, they stumbled toward the emergency exit. The gas seared their lungs. Eleanor's legs buckled. "I can't," she choked. "You have to," Naomi shouted, dragging her forward. They reached the stairs. Amanda met them at the top, mask on, throwing Eleanor a spare. As they burst into daylight, coughing and trembling, agents surrounded the scene. Amanda had leaked the location to trusted press and federal allies. A chopper hovered above. Cameras rolled. Eleanor looked back at the courthouse. "It's not over," she muttered. Naomi gripped her shoulder. "They'll answer for this." But then a voice crackled from a nearby agent's radio. "We've just lost contact with 3 more judges," simultaneously. Eleanor's eyes widened. "They're not done," she whispered.